Hello everyone, it is Jazz here. Today I am doing my June reading wrap up as well as my July to be read. And I have 4 books to talk about, so let's just jump into chatting about them. The first book that I completed in the month of June was Otherland, City of Golden Shadow by Tad Williams. This is the first book in the Otherland series. This is one of those super long books with like a ton of characters and a lot of world building. So I'm just going to give you guys like a general idea of what the book is about. So this book is a science fiction novel set way in the future, and in the future the characters in this book are really involved in the virtual reality world. A group of characters start noticing that what is happening to children when they go into the virtual world is that they are having some kind of nasty side effects. They're going into comas and things like that. And also there are a bunch of other events that are making some of the characters think something is wrong here and we probably should figure out what that is and put a stop to it. So basically there's a group of protagonists that is kind of trying to solve different kinds of mysteries, and there are of course some secret antagonists with a bunch of their crazy problems going on. I was really happy with this book. I think it has such a cool element to it because a lot of this does take place in virtual reality. It's not just your normal science fiction. It also combines a lot of genres in that, such as high fantasy or mystery. Even steampunk is represented in this book. It's just got a whole bunch of different kinds of cool elements to it that make it different from any other science fiction novel. Another thing that I really enjoyed about this is that the effects of what's going on in this world in this book are very global. It definitely affects the world as a whole, and thus you're getting a really wide variety of types of people, different ages of people, different races of people. All kinds of different people are affected by what's going on in this novel, and so thus you're getting like a really diverse group of characters. World building and the character development in this is just like amazing. Like, it blows my mind. You could tell he asked himself a lot of questions and did a lot of research on what this world would be like. I feel like I should warn you that this is one of these books where you should not try to figure out what's going on. You should just enjoy the journey, because it's one of those stories where every time they answer a question, you have more questions. It's kind of like watching the TV show Lost. You're like, but wait, I have more questions now that I thought it was an answer, but it wasn't. It's one of those kind of books. But if you like those type of stories, you will probably not be bothered by that kind of element at all. And being that it is the first book, it's kind of like, okay, well, there's going to be other books, so maybe eventually he's going to answer these questions. I kind of had to switch my, different genre brains to read it. If it was like a section that was kind of high fantasy or steampunk, I had to like switch over that genre. Then I would have to switch back to the sci-fi thing. Then I would have to go like, oh, we're being normal people now. Plus, because of that, it wasn't a book that I could read when I was tired at all. I had to be like really awake to read this. A lot of times when you read, sometimes you're a little tired. So I had to like pick my times to read this, and thus I did read it particularly slow. But that didn't mean that I didn't love the book. I'm definitely continuing on with the series, and even though it's a pretty long book, I do think it was worth it for the fun journey that I went on with this book. So I gave it 5 stars. The second book that I completed was an unpublished work written by my friend Brian Bigelow. He gave me some of his preliminary, like, unpublished works to peruse because he's planning to self-publish some of his stories. This is a novella, and it is called Burn Before Reading. As I have in other videos, when I talk about this book, I'm going to kind of reserve my review and also a star rating on this because it is written by somebody that I actually know that is a friend, and I don't feel like I should air my opinions on it in public. Like, I don't feel comfortable about that. So I'm going to talk about the experience of reading a book that is by somebody that is a friend. It is kind of a different experience because it's kind of like an awesome thing and also a odd thing, because if there's something that you really like, you can tell them directly what you really, really enjoy, and you can also ask them questions about different things that maybe you didn't understand or different things that you wanted to know about that went behind what they were writing. But the other kind of downside is that you do, if you're an honest person, have to tell them what you honestly thought about it. So if there's something that you didn't really enjoy about it, you do have to actually tell them what that stuff was. But I talked with him a little bit about it earlier in the week and discussed that stuff, and it went well, so that is good. But I'm glad that he let me read it. Third book I completed was Anne's House of Dreams, which is the 5th book of the Anne of Green Gables series, and it is just about Anne's married life, pretty much, but it is so much more than that. I haven't reread the Anne series in quite a while, but I always remembered this one being my particular favorite, and I'm happy to say that in my reread, it was still my particular favorite. I think what I love about it is not only is like my favorite like couple together, but it's also the fact that Anne really gets to interact with some different kinds of people and some characters that are side characters that are really full of depth. Not that the other characters that she interacted with, because she's always making new friends, weren't full of depth and things like that, but the backstory on these like additional characters in this one is really interesting and really fun to read, and just as fun to read as anything to do with Anne. House of Dreams is also the one that just gives you all the feels. There's this really nice, tasty mix of like very, very happy comedic moments and also sort of sad, really deeply emotional moments, and it just melts together in this like great mixing pot of things. I took this with me on like a day-long kind of road trip because these are like the perfect road trip books because they usually make you feel good, they keep you entertained, but also they're pretty short and you can read them pretty quickly, and also you don't feel like you're carrying around this huge book if you want to carry a physical book around on a road trip. And it just made traveling super, super awesome. However, I was smart this time and decided to pause right before one of the sad bits in the book that makes me tear up. Done that before, where I've been reading an Anne book and just like sniveling in the car with my dad or my mom, and it's kind of embarrassing. So I waited on that bit and read the rest of the book at home. As I said, this is my particular favorite of the Anne series, and given that I've given every Anne book in the Anne series 5 stars since I started rereading the books, you're gonna just go ahead and guess that this one got 5 stars. Is there something more than 5 stars? 4 stars. Just, I really, really love it. And it's so good. And the last book I read in June was the 5th book in the Mortal Instruments series, City of Lost Souls by Cassandra Clare. I can't really tell you much about this one because it would spoil the whole series for you if you haven't read the series, so let's just move on to what I thought of it. Now, I did really like City of Lost Souls. However, this book is not my favorite in the series because it did not hit the love zone until kind of the end of the book. Most of the books in the Mortal Instruments series that I've read previously are usually a love pretty much start to finish. But this one had a little bit of a rockiness to it. Like when it was great, it was really, really great. And when it was good, it was just good. It didn't like knock me out sometimes. And that doesn't mean that I thought the sections that didn't knock me out were bad. It just means that they weren't like my favorite bits of the book. I had a few little tiny qualms with it. I don't really mind that this book had a lot of subplots. I really enjoy books that have a lot of subplots. But I do feel like some of the subplots in this particular one were not all necessary, or if they were necessary, there could have been less time spent on them. For example, I didn't really care that much about some of the scenes with Jordan and Maya, and it's not because I don't like the two characters, Jordan and Maya. I do like them, but I do consider them as more of side characters as opposed to like the 6 kind of people that you think of as the main characters in the Mortal Instruments series. And so while I was reading stuff about them, I was like, I don't really care about this. What's going on with like Simon or Clary or Jace or any of those people, because that's the part that I care about. I was like, Maya and Jordan, you're playing a great part, and you are doing something useful in this story, but we could have spent less time on this. Cassandra Clare kept describing what the characters that we've known for 5 books look like. This is something that I probably would have willingly just ignored if I felt like the plotting was like in the love zone, but since it was just in the like zone, I like really noticed it, and it kind of did drive me crazy. I already know what they look like. I've had their image in my head for 5 books. I don't really understand why this is here. I'm pretty weird about my like action to romance ratio. I felt like the front half of this book was very like a lot of what I'm gonna call kissy face scenes, and those aren't particularly like entertaining for me. I mean, I understand their purpose for the characters, and that's why I'm not gonna hate on them, but I was just like, and people are kissing again. Sounds like a lot of stuff that I didn't like, but in the grand scheme of things, those were very small things. And I have to say, despite the fact that this did have a lot of subplots, it was fairly well organized in terms of that. And like I said, the ending is like amazing and pretty darn awesome. So there was definitely some really great stuff. Like when the book was great, it was really great. I feel like every series is allowed their sort of 4-starry book, which is the rating that I gave this book. It is a 4-star book. So I did really enjoy it. On to my TBR for the month of July. So of course I have quite a few current reads that I would like to complete, but I do have a few that I would like to at least get started in July. So the first book that I definitely want to get started on is Alexander Dumas' The Three Musketeers. I'm pretty sure I pronounced the author's name wrong, but what's new? I've been wanting to read this for years and years, and then I just never get around to it, or never get around to getting past the first few pages. And the sad thing is that I really loved those first few pages. So I need to finish this book. It's like my must read for the year. The next book that I would like to get a start on is A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin, which is the second book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, or the Game of Thrones series, whichever one you go with. And this one is one that I'm buddy reading with my mom, because we're trying to read all the Game of Thrones books together so that we all know the plot and don't like spoil each other. The third book is kind of an accidental TBR edition, and it is Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare, which is the third book in the Infernal Devices series. So I finished City of Lost Souls, and I was just like, I want more Shadowhunters. So like the next day, I was like, I'm starting Clockwork Princess. So that was my wrap up and TBR for June and July. I hope you guys have a fabulous day, and I will see you all on Sunday. Thank you for watching. Bye!